Welcome back to the Successful Farming Podcast. In today's episode, multi-generational farmer Cody Brown shares the evolving story of Brown Farms, a family-run operation built on tradition, resilience, and innovation. Thank you to today's sponsor, Morton Buildings. Built stronger, lasts longer, looks better. Visit mortonbuildings.com. Have you ever noticed that the longest-lasting and best-looking ag buildings in rural America have that one thing in common? They all have that recognizable Morton Buildings M logo on them. That's because a Morton building is built stronger, lasts longer, and looks better than other post-frame buildings. So if you need equipment storage, an insulated workshop, or a building for dairy, livestock, or even a farm retail business, contact Morton Buildings at mortonbuildings.com and create your own farm building that will last for generations.
Cody, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Well, it's fun to talk to you down there in South Central Alabama. And I understand that you are the fourth generation of your family's 100-plus-year-old farm. So before we get into what's going on down there now, can you tell us a little bit about the history of your farm and maybe any changes that you've seen your dad make since he took over management?
Sure. Really, our home farm was originally purchased by my great-grandfather after World War I. And he didn't really do a whole lot of farming, but his son, my grandfather, did. And that's really how the whole farm got started, was pretty much with my grandfather, the purchasing of additional acreage and starting into doing row crops. And I think he even started into doing hay. There's pictures of my dad when he was just a kid when they did hay too. And my dad really, he's from an older generation than me. And of course, he came from a different background than I have too. So he's done things a little differently than I have, or that I would have wanted to, but that's just a generational difference that you're going to have. But, he did start our hay business, which has really flourished into something that's really something to be proud of. And he started that, and I've just continued on and tried to make that better. We also still grow row crops like corn, cotton, and peanuts every year too. This year was actually the first year in over 25 years that cotton has not been planted on our farm.
Oh my goodness. So what prompted that decision?
The input costs do not outweigh the profit. The profit margin is so very thin, and it's not even thin. It's just non-existent. Based on a good rule of thumb of what we've been able to, guess at, was really break-even point on cotton is 82 to 86 cents a pound, and it's trading today. It's in the 60 cents, and I'm sorry, but I actually led the charge in not doing that this year because it was just a loss. And
how does anybody make money like that with those prices?
I really don't know, to be honest with you, unless they're just relying on the government for subsidies. And if you have to be a successful farm, subsidies shouldn't be the only source to keep you afloat or long term, in my opinion.
Yeah. So tell me what you did with those acres that you had in cotton before. What are you growing there now?
Oh, sure. A couple of them. I was actually in a partnership with two other men, and it was around 300 to 500 acres a piece that we had. So a farmer local to us passed away, and we ended up taking over his property. We rented it from his wife, and I ended up exiting that partnership because there was rent involved and the rotation was up for cotton. So I had to decide I'm going to put my focus elsewhere. And my dad did the same. A little different for him. He has ownership on his property. So it's not like he's taking a loss on any rent, or it's not like he was going to lose his land. So a little bit different situation for him.
Yeah. So your dad is still active on the farm today, and I'm sure that's wonderful for you to have his knowledge base and experience, and to have a mentor like that.
It very much is. He's 73 years old and still comes to work every single day. I'm convinced he has no hobbies.
Do farmers have hobbies other than farming? I don't know.
I don't think so. I think if you're running one the right way, you don't have a whole lot of time left.
I mean, you're right. Yeah, that's for sure true. So I understand that when you were growing up, obviously you were working on the farm, working with your dad, and then even when you first went off to like community college, but when you went off to finish your education at the University of Alabama, not the first ag school in Alabama that comes to mind.
I know.
but you were not planning on becoming a full-time farmer. So before we get into your change in direction, tell us about what you were studying and what your career looked like after college.
Sure. I actually, as you mentioned, I started at junior college in my hometown here in Andalusia. So I got my associate's degree, really not any plans to continue my education. And my parents, they prompted me to at least continue to get my associate's degree. And I really excelled outside of high school and in into junior college. So that really gave me the confidence to continue my education and finish. I'd always, since I was a young kid, I wanted to be able to go to Alabama. I always dreamed to go there. I loved the football, loved all that growing up. Really was fortunate to have the opportunity to go finish my education there. And, once I got there, I was really undecided on where that might lead me. I still had an undeclared major when I got there as a junior. And, so I had taken some entry level business classes, and that resonated really well with me. And I was just thinking to myself, well, I can applicate this to pretty much any aspect of my life. It does definitely me being a farm manager and co-owner and everything, and having that background, but I think it really has given me quite an edge, and a leg up. It's not an ag school at all, but I got into business school and I ended up getting my bachelor's degree in operations management, which are really,
Oh, that's perfect.
yeah, I know, right?
Yeah, it's one of those things where, you said you were undeclared, you weren't sure what you wanted to do. And I mean, I have 3 sons, 2 just out of college and one who'll be a junior this fall. And it just feels like asking a 17, 18, 19, 20-year-old kid, like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? Let's declare a major. It's just like, wow, that's a lot to ask of someone so young, but business is always a good choice.
Absolutely.
Because like you said, you can do so many different things with that kind of degree and just the knowledge that you gain in that department. So what kinds of work were you doing after college then?
Oh, kind of a wild story. I'll kind of try to not drag into it a whole lot, but it's kind of a wild ride. So immediately after graduating in December of '09, the job market was terrible. The economy was in an awful place, and there weren't any jobs out there when I first entered into my major and declared, and there were guys and girls in my class that, they were getting jobs at BMW and Frito-Lay and all your major auto manufacturing companies and everything like that. And by the time I graduated, those were few and far between. So, growing up here where I grew up, there's a lot of people in my area that they work offshore in the oil field. And me not being a stranger to hard work, I was stagnant for too long. And obviously I'm not the type of person to be able to be stagnant. So I reached out to some people that we knew, and I started working offshore in the Gulf. And probably some of the hardest work I've ever done in my life. But it also gave me, yes. So I started doing that. The first company I worked with, I was there for just a little over a year. And then I changed companies and got to travel overseas, traveled all over the world, and with a different company. And we brought a brand new drill ship all the way across from South Korea all the way back to Galveston, Texas. Pretty wild.
Wow.
Yeah.
You talked about the hard work involved, being offshore and all that. And I think, growing up as a farm kid, you learn the value of hard work and responsibility. And I feel like employers really, pay attention to that. And that's one thing I've told my kids, and that I advise, young farm kids to don't shy away from talking about that farm kid experience when you're looking for a full-time grown-up job, because, honestly, those skills that you learn and the discipline and the responsibility, all of that, employers love that.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that kind of lead me into my next talking point. When I didn't work offshore, when I decided that wasn't going to be the life for me, being gone half my life.
Yeah.
A friend of mine, he worked at a chemical manufacturer that you might probably realize the name of it is Monsanto.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
Yeah, heard of them a time or two. But anyway, it was the company that purchased that plant from Monsanto. It was in Anniston, Alabama, and they produced aviation hydraulic fluid for all your major airlines. If you fly in a plane, you probably have that fluid in your plane. So in my interview with my then boss, he was in St. Louis and interviewed me and asked me what I'd been doing with my life since college. And I was like, hey, well, I was out of college for 2 months, and then I was offshore for the last year and a half. And I think he really respected that, and he gave me a shot, and yeah, gave me the job, and I did really well there.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. So then after you were finished with that part of your life, is that when you made the move to come back to the farm?
No. It sure wasn't. I jumped around quite a bit. Got the opportunity to do a lot of different things. So the chemical plant that I was employed at, to begin with, I was the supply chain manager for aviation hydraulic fluids in the U.S., continental U.S., and then I became the global supply chain manager. I took care of all the inventory control and rolled those down to the production team. They made several different types of fluids, and I worked with marketing and all of the other regions to figure out exactly how much we needed, and worked a lot closely with production. And that was kind of the gist of that. But then,
I'm hearing a lot about renewable aviation fuel these days.
really,
So that's kind of an interesting,
yeah. So after that, I think I was there for almost 3 years, and I decided I needed to make a change again. A larger company had bought out the company that I was with, and I did not want to relocate to Kingsport, Tennessee. So
Mhm.
I was already living in Anniston, Alabama, and started searching for something else. And I was contacted by Honda Manufacturing in Alabama, and that was my next step. So I went and interviewed there and made the jump from chemicals to auto manufacturing to mass production auto manufacturing, which was really interesting and stressful and really, really cool at the same time. When I got there, I was the nationwide supply chain manager for service parts. So if there was a Honda that we made at the plant, it was all the service part demand from every dealer in the United States. So did that, and wouldn't do that again, but I did that.
You learned a lot about logistics there, I'm guessing.
Lots about logistics, and I've come to find out that if you're not the boss, it's hard to play middleman to other people. So that's kind of how that was. And, I ended up exiting that career with that company a couple of years. I was with them 2 years. I then moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and sold my home, moved to Birmingham, starting over again. I ended up working at this metal fabrication company. It was privately owned at the time, and I did the same sort of deal. I did logistics and supply chain management, and then they changed over to a publicly traded company, and then back to a privately owned company while I was there, and in just a short span of a year. So during the time I was in Birmingham, my father contacted me and really propositioned me with if I had any interest in moving home. I'm really the last one in line and the only son in our family to continue our family's business, and to keep that going, it was really hard to say no. And so I just pretty much turned my back on my corporate job and everything like that, traded it back to come back here.
Wow. That's one thing about life, is that your first job is just your first job, and you can make changes in your career and in your life and take things in a different direction. So what was it like for you to leave the corporate world and go back to the family farm?
It was interesting to say the least. I really didn't know totally what to expect when I got here. I don't know, I assumed it to be different. I mean, it was a lot different and a lot the same. I mean, there wasn't a ton of improvements that had been made. There were some. I mean, we had GPS on tractors when I came back. We didn't when I left. So that was a huge improvement. But more or less, I mean, a lot of the processes had stayed the same and had not really evolved with the times. And like I wish they would have, but hey, at least I get the opportunity to do that now.
Yeah. So is your dad, is he excited and willing to roll with changes as far as technology and innovation goes? Sometimes that can be a battle with the dads.
At the beginning, he was very resistant, and it was really hard to juggle the amount of hay that we were doing, the horse quality aspect of it. It's really intensive and really requires a lot of care. With farming as well, on top of that as well, doing 500-600 acres plus. At times it was over 1,000, 2,000 acres that we were doing, plus more or less 500 acres of hay.
Right.
Using that old system, it was, to be honest with you, it was killing me. And at the end of it's been 3 years ago now since we made the change to that production process that it's just, I've gotten to the point where just like, well, if we don't evolve, then I have to rethink my situation. So
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about those changes in production and what you did to sort of streamline things.
sure, absolutely. To begin with, my father, he'd gotten to the point, and I'm sure you've seen pictures where people are doing, that's kind of our specialty is square bales of hay. And, back in the day, you had a bunch of young guys picking up singles and throwing them on a trailer, stacking them up. And as time progressed, he got shorthanded on help and decided to upgrade, which I'm really happy he did. But that was just a 10 bale system, and they had accumulators on the back sides of the balers where they just kicked off 10 at a time. And then you picked them up with a front end loader on a tractor. And the bales are loose, and you still have to have skill and how to load those and everything.
Yeah.
It was just 10 at a time, like I said, and it was just labor intensive as well.
Oh man. Yeah.
And we were at that time, which that's been several years ago now, we were a big day was 3,000, 2,000 bales. And unloading those was just an act of Congress. The next day, you would just be struggling to catch up to, go the next day.
Yeah.
So I'd gotten to the point where, I'm really, I can't do this anymore. Like mentally, physically, I'm just exhausted. And, we got the opportunity, or he actually had the opportunity. I've known about it for a long time, but he actually went and got to see a bale bearing run in North Alabama, and he came back and was telling me about it, and I said, this is the time. I was like, and it was kind of right before season. It was in April and that's been 3 years ago now. And I said, this is the time to make the change. Let's look into this equipment. I was like, I know the capabilities of it, and this. And I told him, I said, if you don't want in on it, I was like, just please let me. I said, if you don't want in on this, then I got to go. I said, either you can hand it over and I can go 100% in. I said, or I would love for you to do this with me. And it's just been nothing more than magic since we invested in that piece of equipment, and it's given us the capability to just do so much more with half the effort.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting how in different parts of the country, how hay is so different. I mean, I'm in Iowa. So, like here in the Midwest, we have big round bales are what most farmers have. Small square bales for, horse folks or like people who have just like a smaller livestock operation, you're throwing the hay, you're manually, rather than using a tractor to roll out those big bales. But I'm seeing you with the big square bale. So is that like a more common thing in the South than is that what most folks down there are producing?
So the beauty about the system,
and why?
So the beauty about the system that we have, there are 21 individual bales in a bundle. So they cut those 4 strings, and then they got their small squares, and that's great for.
Okay.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So it looks like a big square bale, but it's a bunch of small square bales bundled together. Yep. But that's great.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
So so when you're trucking those, and that's a lot fewer little individual bales that you have to deal with, but still the convenience of a small bale.
Absolutely. And it gave us.
Oh, that's so interesting.
I know it's wonderful. It's applicable for small and large, resellers, everything. It's great. People show up to the farm all the time, and they just want one bundle of 21. They fit in the back of a pickup perfectly. They just come and they're able to set it in their car, and they're gone in 2 minutes. It's great.
Boy. Yeah, I've loaded up many pickups with small bales of hay, and it's an effort. Yeah. It's an effort to get that done. So, also, I'm sure there are differences in like the kind of hay you're growing, what you're growing here. We have alfalfa, brome, Timothy, orchard grass, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So tell me what you're growing down there and why that works out for your climate.
Sure. Our farm consists 100% of Bermuda grass. Our whole hay business is based on 100% Bermuda. We have several different varieties. Those range from coastal to Tipton 44, Tipton 85, and I think a little bit of 78 as well. So different varieties between you and I, if you look at them, unless you know how they grow. Also Tipton 44, that's another one too that we have. But once it gets into a bale, you really can't tell the difference of the varieties unless you happen to see a stem head or something like that on a
Yeah.
plant. I think what makes ours really special is the process that we use. We really have really strict quality control measures with our hay. Always test it for nutrition, every cutting. If it ever gets rained on, we rarely put it in a square bale and sell it to people that have horses. More times than not, if it does get rained on during, especially that drying process, we'll just put it in a roll and sell it as cow quality hay. Well, there is just a
Yeah. So speaking of the horse folks, obviously their needs are very different from your average cattle producer, So I would imagine that those horse folks, especially down there in the South, probably make up a pretty good chunk of your business.
100% or 90, probably 90, 98% of my business. Sure do.
Right. Yeah. It's interesting, to think about like just that your average layperson, I think wouldn't know that there's really a difference in the quality or what the needs are for those different animals. But yeah, horses are, those nutritional requirements and that hay makeup is really important for those folks.
Absolutely. And the horses that my clientele have, the majority of them are very, very high end horses. And, I have a lot of, some customers that have horses they have flown in from Italy and other places that they want to really tailor their diet to that horse. And the wonderful thing about our hay is it's naturally lower in sugar, and a lot of people really want that nutritional value without that sugar that you get. And I think a lot of that is to do with the type of grass that we have and the soil that we have here.
Are you a farmer looking for an industry-leading farm building? A building made with the best materials and craftsmanship? Then there's only one builder for you, Morton Buildings. Morton understands the needs of every farm business, and they can create a building just for you that makes your routine activities much more efficient. And best of all, a Morton building is built stronger, lasts longer, and looks better. Contact Morton Buildings at mortonbuildings.com to create your own farm building to maximize your productivity.
That makes sense. So I saw on your Facebook page that you had your second cutting of the year yesterday. And I'm also interested in the differences between just sort of the hay season in the South v. the Midwest, where you have more days of better weather than we do up here. So just take me through kind of what your year looks like as far as, field work and haying and that kind of stuff goes in your cuttings throughout the year.
Sure. Normally, which this year was a little earlier than normal, we started in around mid-May with our first cutting this year. So leading up to that, we're fertilizing and preparing the fields and getting everything ready. And we kicked off our first cutting around May the 15th this year. And we'll run all the way from May. We have gone into mid-October baling hay as well, which is actually my favorite. My favorite cutting is the last one, not just the fact that it's the last one, but the hay's beautiful. The humidity is lower that time of the year, and you can normally bale in around 24 hours. And so you're cutting one day and baling another, and then baling the very next day. We've done that a bunch.
Oh, that is nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
Because, the longer that hay lays on the ground, the more of a chance it's going to rain.
That's right.
That's just how the weather works, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. And that's just kind of the situation we were faced with yesterday. We finished some fields off, quite a bit of moving around yesterday, and and then it rained. After we got all the hay done yesterday, and then it decided to rain like 2 inches. So at least we got that done. So it was a chance that we took and got lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the thing about hay where, when you're baling hay for your own animals, it's one thing, but when that's like your business,
yeah.
I mean, the weather is plays such a huge factor in that. I mean, probably more than any other commodity because it's so very specific.
Yes.
You cut the hay, it's on the ground and you just got to pray that it doesn't rain before you get everything raked and baled. It's just, it's stressful even for those who are just doing a small amount. But when you're looking at hundreds and hundreds of acres of hay,
yeah.
That's you got to really watch that weather report very closely.
Absolutely. It's chaotic, but I think that's part of it that I like about it. I like the chaos and all the different moving parts. And the only parts I don't like is when something breaks and you're in the middle of the field and trying to figure out how to fix that, but you got to be quick on your feet and make those changes too. We've been really fortunate so far. So.
That's good. So speaking of weather, I also saw that you were able to donate some hay after Hurricane Helene, which was just so traumatic. So tell me a little bit about what you saw, down there and what you were able to do to help some of those folks out.
Yeah, absolutely. It was, when that storm came up through Florida, there's a lot of there's actually a lot huger producers than I am down in Florida. I mean, they're, probably thousands of acres. If I had to guess, I don't know them personally, but it came right through them and, went up through Georgia all the way up. And it was just devastating to those people. And I know that not just the people in agriculture, but just everybody, and just changed their way of life. And we started seeing all the animals that needed feed, and everything. The barns were destroyed, and we got thinking, well, at least hopefully we can help. So kind of put a post out there offering, a load of hay, and a young man from Georgia got into contact with me, drove all night long, and met me at daylight at my farm, and we put some of the finest quality hay that he probably ever seen on that trailer to go. And I'm just as proud as I can be that it got to go help those people up there.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, farmers are so great at stepping up and helping their neighbors. And, you think of it a lot when it's like someone is injured or someone dies and it's time for harvest and all the neighbors come rolling in with their combines and they just get the crops in.
That's right.
But this is a similar kind of thing, but with a natural disaster like that, when people are just left with animals that need to eat and their stockpiles are gone, they would face a lot of really difficult choices. So it's amazing that you were able to help them out.
Absolutely. We've been very, very blessed where we are. And just like you said, it's always good to try to help a neighbor or help anybody. So we were really happy to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked a little bit about equipment and the upgrade that you made with the baling. I'm wondering what other kinds of, equipment or technology you're using on the farm and how that's kind of changed over the recent years.
Sure. Over the last several years, like I said, we've still been doing row crop every year, peanuts, corn, and cotton. Kind of backed off away from that a little bit, but like I said, we're fully GPS farm, so everything is in tune, and all of our fields that we grow our row crops in, they're 100% done by GPS. This makes life so much easier. We got a 100-foot boom sprayer that drives itself, and you just kind of got to sit back and make sure you don't run it into anything. Other than that, it's really nice, and all of our spray application, all our fertilizer application, and everything like that done by GPS. It's wonderful. Other than that, that's probably about the biggest adjustment that we've made. We've added a larger sprayer and added a lot more capability to getting over larger tracts of land quicker.
Yeah. It's always interesting to me when I'm talking to a multi-generational farm or a, fourth, fifth, sixth generation farmer. And we talk about this technology to think about, like you with your grandpa, what he would think seeing things today, when you're dealing with, in his case, I'm sure, a tractor without a cab and all of this. And in some other cases, people were, their ancestors were dealing with horses or oxen or whatever it was. And now all this technology is it boggles the mind, but it's so great.
It's unbelievable. It really is. Especially, being out in the Midwest. I'm sure you see cornfields for days out there, and they have
days.
Yeah. And it's kind of, I'm sure the drone spraying, that's become kind of a thing too.
Mm-hmm.
And we never have gotten into that because we really don't have use for it, but I'm sure it would be really, really nice to have.
Yeah, that's becoming more and more popular. And even for livestock producers, for checking animals or also for applying like insecticide, powder that's amazing that's a thing that you can do with a drone.
It certainly is.
Cool.
It certainly is.
It's so cool.
My wife and I,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say my wife and I had gone to it's the National Peanut Festival in Dothan, Alabama. And they had a booth they had the drone sprayers out. And that's actually the first time I'd seen one was last year. But
oh, that's so cool.
Pretty amazing stuff, though.
I have never actually seen a peanut farm or a cotton field.
Oh,
So like I have got to get to the south. I think maybe next year.
okay.
It's always so fun to me to see, when you travel and you see different crops and the way farms look different. I just love that. It's so interesting to me. So yeah, I've spent a lot of time in the Midwest and the West and the North, but I've got to get down. I've got to get down south and check all that out.
Absolutely. Come in October when it's not
But
so
maybe,
hot.
not in July when it's 1,000,000 degrees.
Exactly. Don't come now or in July. You'll be okay. Maybe not even August.
Yeah, maybe October would be nice. I
That's
don't
when we
know.
like to go to
We'll
the
see.
beach, to be honest, is in October, which
Yeah.
we live
I love it.
really close to the
So you talked a bit about quality control earlier. So let's talk about that for a minute and what you're doing as far as having to deal with, weeds or insect pests, your moisture and storage, that kind of thing. Like what are your obstacles when it comes to quality control?
Sure, absolutely. The weeds are definitely always a problem. Just gotta keep a watch on those. We get Bahia grass into our Bermuda fields. That stuff has a really, really, really high possibility of spreading. So normally we handle those by just spot spraying on side by sides. And, unfortunately, that's about the best way to take care of it. And just kind of have to go field by field and cutting by cutting, and just these problem areas arise, and you just have to take them out when you could see them again after you cut. Once they're in the rotation of cutting and that weed is there, you run these cutter conditioners over it where this grass is going through a machine and all the different seeds are just spreading out the back of it. It's just a constant battle. So taking care of those and on the front end is really, really important for us. Coming into the end of this month and starting in July, the army worms will start moving in on this Bermuda grass, and they can devastate a field in days. And
oh my goodness.
yes, most of our cutting patterns are set on around 3.5, 4 weeks. So the growing patterns our first cutting was, like I said, was May the 15th, and we were just a little later on this second cutting, but I think we started again in about the June the 15th, so a month later. And but now is the time when the weather starts really heating up. We'll have these worms come in, and also stem maggots. These flies, they lay eggs in the stem and they eat the stem from the outside, the inside out. So you have to spray pesticides to take care of those. You have to use a certain pesticide that doesn't stay. It doesn't get into the plant. Just takes care of the pest.
Yeah.
So it's a definitely a labor of love. Also, you had asked about the moisture and everything like that. We're in the South. The humidity is sometimes 75, 80%. Down here, it's like walking into a sauna every day at work.
Yeah.
You can't bale hay at super high humidities in short periods of time. And just say you've got a 3-day window, we would cut one day and bale 2 days later. That's normal for us. And we like our moisture to be 12%. We start testing, and if it's not that, we'll wait. Maybe fluff the hay back out with the tedder and try to get that moisture down, just with sun and wind. But really, those are the biggest aspects of this business is just the moisture control, the pests, the weeds. If you can take care of all that and, produce an excellent product, I mean, you've really done something.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And I'm sure along with that, you're looking at your soil and managing that. So tell me what kinds of efforts, either on the hay side, and on the crop side too, for, improving your soil health.
Yes, absolutely. So on our hay fields, we used to use, which we still do, we use a lot of nitrate. And now it's urea. We used to use ammonium nitrate, which now we can't get our hands on anymore, unfortunately. But it was a wonderful product for us. It activated really quickly. You didn't have to have rain on it. It would sit in the fields, and when it did rain, you would get your growth. But this urea, we get it coated, and then we spread it on the fields, and you've got like 7 to 12 days. And if you don't get rain in that window, then it just dissipates into the atmosphere, the most of it. So that's another challenge that we've had to face. And that's been, they just threw that at us a couple of years ago, but we've done our best with it. I think we've done pretty well on timing and everything. But,
yeah. And there's when you're hoping for it to rain.
Yes.
Yes. You gotta hope it doesn't rain. When you got hay in the ground, you gotta hope it does rain. When you're dealing with urea, it's just a lot. It's a lot of hoping the weather cooperates.
Hoping and praying and, a lot of the times it works out, sometimes it doesn't, and you got to back up and punt, But
Yeah.
you had asked about soil health and everything. We get our hay fields especially tested every year. We get a grid sample done. Usually every 2 years we have to applicate lime because all of the heavy nitrate use, the ammonia nitrate, the urea, it really devastates the soil because we're uh,
Yeah.
applicating at such a high rate. The more fertilizer you use on this grass, the better product you get, the better growth you
Yeah.
get. We applicate after every cutting, and it's not a small amount per acre either. And that's one of the reasons we have such good hay.
Yeah. Yeah. So tell me about the fertilizer and what your sort of options are there.
It is. We actually we have a farmers co-op here in Andalusia. They have a application service. If we hire them, they can come and applicate our fields, fertilizer. They have liquid and granular. What we actually applicate all of our fields ourselves since we are GPS capable. We don't need to pay that
Right.
extra expense in hiring that out. And they do a lot of custom spraying and everything too. Sometimes we've used them in the past to spray or never our hay fields, but just on row crops.
Hmm.
But that is a
Right.
nice option to have if you get in a bind, and you can just make a phone call and they'll get your fertilizer out for you.
Yeah, definitely. Like you said, having the capability of doing that yourself with your equipment and your technology, like that does save a significant amount. And when you're looking at inputs, including labor and gas and time as an input, I mean, the margin is so tight in so many areas of agriculture right now that like those inputs, if you can control your input costs, you might have a chance,
Absolutely.
So yeah, talk to me a little bit about that and just like anything you're able to do to reduce those input costs that are just so killer right now.
Sure, absolutely. And that was one of my main reasons for backing away from cotton. And I advised my dad to do the same this year is because the input costs were so high, and they still are high. You're paying for the technology of seed, and then you're paying for all the herbicides, fungicides, defoliant, everything that you're looking at with that crop. And it's just astronomical. And the fuel prices are not low now either. And that pretty much
Yeah.
runs hand in hand with your fertilizer cost and everything to do with farm.
Yeah.
But to combat some of those, to combat the main cost for me was to back away from cotton. And we are planning to plant another 100 acres of grass next week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
nice. I'm guessing that with your hay and, the marketing of that, the business is very different from other commodities. And do you feel like the hay, I mean, of course, business is business, but does it feel like a steadier, more stable sort of situation for you than dealing with what's the price of, beans today or corn or whatever it is? It's just, it's very volatile.
Yes, absolutely. For us, we're actually able to provide a superior product than you would say at Tractor Supply. And I believe it's kind of like you had mentioned earlier. Horse quality is different to a lot of people. To us, it's the best that you can make. And you'll see hay sold at Tractor Supply for $12, $14, and that's and that's something that I wouldn't feed to my cow.
Right.
But to answer your question, yes, the hay business is a cash flow business. The hay actually funds the rest of our business, pays all of our employees year round, funds other failed crops if needed. But it's actually a wonderful business. It's like I said, there's always cash flow, and it pays our bills, throughout the year.
Mhm.
Instead of like, which I've been in the same boat too, you get to the end of a harvest season and you don't end up where you think you might be and end up owing a lot of money. And there's no way to tell if you're going to be great or you're not, until you get that crop in. I just wanted to cut some of that out. Like, yeah, I can't control the weather, but I've got 4 shots in a year to cut a bunch of hay, and I've got a good market, and I would rather throw my eggs in that basket.
Yeah. Yeah. And like you mentioned, like things that are out of your control. And it feels like with the hay, like you said, you have a little more control. I mean, obviously the weather could do anything and, whatever, but, that's one of the things that is so stressful about being a farmer or a rancher when you're dealing with markets and prices and inputs and all these and weather, all these things that you can't control. And that is just so incredibly stressful. And it feels like, that's such a major contributor to mental health issues in rural America. It's so hard. So it's amazing that you've, really taken a look at your business and been willing to make changes to sort of negate some of that.
Absolutely. And I will lead into this after your comment. I'd actually hired an accounting firm and financial advisors to really take a deep dive into the business. They take a look at all of take a look at all the financial aspect of the business every month. And, they'll throw up we get so involved in working. The financial aspect of the business is just as important as the work, and bookkeeping, accounting, everything like that. I cannot stress the importance of having that. And that's just been I learned that from my previous work experience. Well, I had accounting groups that worked at these major corporations and stuff. So they had their own designated finance team, their accountants, and I wanted to do the same for us.
Yeah.
And that was another huge improvement that we made. I mean, just having the right team in place is just night and day. But
it's huge. It's huge. I wrote an article earlier this year, or it might have been last year by now, but about draft your dream team. So it was all about like getting the right people on your team, because like being a farmer is hard enough.
yes,
And you're used to wearing a billion hats as a farmer or a parent, whatever it is you're doing, all of these things at once. But to expect yourself or your spouse to also be an accountant and an attorney and all these things, it's just too much. So if you can get a good team of people around you who you trust and who can really help you make solid decisions about your business, you are so far ahead.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And it was like you said, my previous generation, my father, my mother, she was a career nurse, and the burden was placed upon her to do all the accounting for the business. And it was just really unreasonable. She's working a full-time job. She raised my sister and myself. And
right.
She didn't have the business background or what to look at.
Right.
It's just, it's unreasonable. It really is.
It really is. And I think that was very common. It's still very common where, in a traditional role of the wife is maybe working off farm, raising kids, and also doing the books. And, while I'm sure, your mom and these other women too are very good at what they do. But when you think about how laws change and tax law and all these things that are just constantly evolving. And if your job is not to stay on top of that, it just feels like it could be so easy to miss something really big.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not worth the risk. It's not worth the risk of running such an operation and working so hard to be blindsided by something that you didn't know about. And that's why you pay people to know about those things. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And, one of those people, it feels like, should be someone to help you with a succession plan and transitioning. And that's the thing where it is so, so hard. It's hard for the younger generation in many cases that feels like they're putting in all this sweat equity and they don't know for sure if they're going to end up with the farm. And then the parents who often think, well, I don't want to talk about this. My kids get along. They'll work it out. And that's just not the way it goes. So tell me how that's gone in your family. And you mentioned you have a sister, and like how have your folks handled the business side of that kind of transition?
Sure. I couldn't agree more with you. That is a touchy subject, and it was for quite some time. My father actually has a couple of siblings and that are semi-connected to the farm. And after moving here, I really didn't focus on that a whole lot, but as I got to thinking about it, I'm really setting myself up for failure if I don't really take this by the horns. And that being said, I was, if God forbid something would have happened to my parents or something would have happened to my dad and there wasn't a will in place, I'm totally out in the open. I've been here for 10 years and I'm totally unprotected, and I stand the chance to lose everything that I've worked so hard to get to this point. And with that being said, I hired a lawyer. We got a will in place and have all that stuff taken care of on the front end. That way that we unfortunately have to face that down the road, at least we won't have a lot of animosity between family members, because that
Yeah.
is pretty common.
I tell you, it's very common. And that's such a gift that your parents can give you of like having a plan and also communicating that plan so that people aren't blindsided.
Yes.
And, uncles and cousins aren't like, wait, what about me? And they're mad at you or whatever it is. And like you said, you've been there and you've been working and making improvements and busting your tail. And you want to know that that's not for nothing.
Absolutely. And I don't think that if I wouldn't have pressed it, I don't think that it would have happened, because as I had mentioned, I just had too much to lose, especially with what I've invested.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And that's very common where, unless the children push for it, it just won't happen in many cases.
You're right.
So it's good that you did that. And it's also good that you were listened to
Thank
in that
goodness.
sense.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank goodness indeed. Yeah. Yeah. Cause then you can really just focus on, your work and on being a family. It just, I just think it's better for everyone when the directives are clear and there's communication and everyone knows what to expect.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. And that's what you get a lot of times too with the previous generation, especially like my father and his grandfather. When my grandparents, they passed, they didn't have a solidified will in place. It was kind of messy. And it was just something that wasn't willing to redo.
Yeah. That's good. So smart. So smart. So speaking of business and all of those kinds of things, I saw that you recently created a new LLC in Coastal Hay Company.
Yeah.
So tell me about that and sort of what brought on that formation and what your plans are there.
Sure, absolutely. I'm really excited about it. It's not something that I've got to spend a whole lot of time doing. It's really, I have an idea of where I want to be with it. Brown Farms, that was my dad's and his brothers and his family. And not really, this farm will be 100% mine one day. And, I want that to be my brand, especially for the hay business. I mean, Brown Farms will never disappear. It's more or less a subsidiary of Brown Farms. I named it Coastal Hay Company because we are kind of close to the coast. And at the same time, it's one of the varieties of grass that we grow. So I thought that was a pretty neat play on words.
I love it.
Yeah. And, I have aspirations for that brand to really push it as far as I can go with it. I wanted to have some apparel and, hats and shirts and maybe even some sort of membership type. I really wanted to gear that part of that business towards, higher end clientele. I would love to see the hay get to the Kentucky Derby and all of these other, big name, where these horses are at. And that's what I really wanted to do with that business.
That's so cool. I love that. So you already have had some, sort of success as far as getting your hay out there. So tell me about like where your hay is going. I know we talked about it being horse owners, but like geographically, where are you doing most of your selling?
I would say probably 90% of it is in Florida, and I have sent hay to Georgia, and really all the southern states, all the way out to Texas, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. But I have the capability to ship nationwide, which is wonderful. I just have such a large demand that I don't have to reach out any farther than that as where I'm at right now. But I have that capability, which is great.
Yeah. Well, that's a good problem to have. So are you trucking that yourself or how are you shipping?
Some of that I truck myself. I actually got my CDL and we have a truck and I do pretty much anything and everything myself. And I will say like the young men that work for me, I work beside them and, that's, I like to think that is what's called a leader and not just a boss. To lead is to work alongside, I believe.
Yeah.
But to go back to your original question, I do truck a lot of my own hay. I subcontract trucking companies, logistics to get where it needs to go. And I have a customer of mine that's in West Palm Beach, Florida, and they drive up here every single week to get a load of hay every month, every week.
Goodness. That's amazing. Well, that speaks volumes about the quality to have return customers like that.
I think so too.
That's amazing. So
I was just going to say, I think so too, because they're passing right by a bunch of huge producers, and that makes me feel really good about the product that we're making here.
Yeah, for sure. So you mentioned your employees, and I know, that's labor is a thing that is so hard in agriculture right now. Well, everywhere, but especially in agriculture, it feels like it's hard to find good employees. It's hard to get them hired. It's hard to keep them once you have them. So tell me a little bit about your situation there, like how many folks you have working for you and how you're finding them and how you're keeping them.
Sure. Been really, really fortunate. We are really quite a lean operation. We don't really have more than we need. Some of the people that we hire are seasonal. They'll come in during hay season, have, a few older gentlemen that help us. And they're great. They just operate equipment. They'll run a hay baler, drive a tractor. But just keep them in that AC as much as possible.
I feel that.
But they're great. They're really experienced, and they do know how to work on stuff. It breaks. And great thing about that is I'm always in the field with everybody. So if anybody needs help with anything, I can be right there if I need to. The young men that work for me, I'm really really so blessed to have them. The first young man that I hired, he was 17 and still in high school. And so he was coming and working half a day after he got out of school. And then he graduated and we hired him full time. And hiring him led to his friends. And we hired another one of them, actually had another one of their friends to come in. He's working for us for the season. And it's been great. We also have a man that has been farming with us he's been with my father for the better part of 40 years. And he has children and they help us too, which is great.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah. And
Yeah, that says a lot too, when someone recommends their friend to come and work with them or their children, even more so, that, they really must feel like it's, like they're being treated fairly and that it's a good place to be. So that, that says a lot too.
I couldn't agree more. And that kind of rolls back into what I said about being a leader. And, I kind of said this before, I forget somewhere else, but I had, I would like to be a leader first, a friend second, and a boss third. That's how I like to manage my portion of this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's great. And it feels like when they see you in the field with them, like you said, and you're doing the work too, I mean, there's an amount of respect there that is tough to get if you were just sitting in an office all day and they were out in the heat doing the work. They see you out there, they know what you're talking about. And, I'm sure value your opinion even more because of that.
Yeah, I like to think so. And, it really makes me appreciate them because they started working for us. They barely knew how to drive a tractor, and now I can see them out there doing most everything that I can do because I trained them how to do it, and that makes me feel good about that.
Oh, that's amazing. So tell me what's next for you. What do you see coming down the pipe in the next year, or what do things look like for you in the next 5 years or so?
Sure. I would like to say that by the end of this year, I would like to have my LLC off the ground. I really want to start really placing a lot of focus on that. And I'm going to be working with a marketing team and a business development team to get this thing exactly how I want it, and maybe give me some guidance on how I want to get this thing off the ground. I would like to roll into the first part of next year. I would like to have a brand in place and maybe working with some apparel lines and stuff like that. Really want to launch that off into where I want it to go next year. And so that's really going to be my focus is making that transition for me personally from Brown Farms into, Coastal Hayco.
Yeah.
And with the additional acres this year, fortunately, I'm in the position that I'm able to convert land over to that if I need to, family land
Right.
and everything like that. So I'm very, very blessed and lucky to have that capability. So that's kind of my short-term plan. I would say a little bit longer term, 2-3 years. I want to have that horse at the Kentucky Derby or the Royal Ascot that fed my hay. That'd be great.
Yes. Well, you need to be sure to let me know when that happens.
Absolutely. You'll definitely be one of the first to know.
Well, that's so exciting. Well, I'm sure you'll get there. It's exciting to see you be able to create a new brand for yourself and your own business, but still, sort of paying homage to your ancestors and your family and maintaining the Brown farm as well. So, congratulations on all of your success. You're doing such good work down there, and not only for yourself but for your neighbors. So I look forward to seeing what's next for you.
Well, thank you so much. much. And I can't say I appreciate it enough that you asked me to be here today and talk with me. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, it's been great to talk to you, and, have a great season. And, like they said, you gotta make hay when the sun shines. So I hope the sun shines when you need it and the rain comes when you need it.
I hope so too. We'll keep our fingers crossed and hope for the best.
Sounds good. Thank you, Cody.
Thank you so much, Lisa. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you to our guest today, Cody Brown, for sharing your story and expertise with us. Also, thank you to our sponsor, Morton Buildings. For more stories like this, visit agriculture.com. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. You can also follow Successful Farming on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads. And be sure to check out our other podcasts, 15 Minutes with a Farmer and Successful Farming, wherever you get your podcasts.